Part 3. Here. Yes. Having reached the topmost level, Shizu and Nia exchanged looks. There was only one door here. That would mean it was undoubtedly their objective. They nodded to each other, and then kicked the door in. They had long since abandoned any thoughts of a covert entry. After all, they had just fought a big battle with the Va'un. That said, the two of them leaned against the threshold of the door, in case someone attacked them in the instant it opened. However, their caution had been in vain. Therefore, they both leapt into the room at the same time. Nia grit her teeth against the pain from her shoulder and went left, while Shizu went right, and they both covered each other. The first thing they saw was a large, canopied bed. Perhaps its lace trimmings had once been white, but age had blackened them. The room also contained a simple dresser and human-sized furniture such as a cabinet and others. These pieces of noble-styled furniture were old and damaged, and they did not look like antiques so much as used goods. A quick glance across the room revealed no demi-humans. Shizu raised her chin to signal to Nia, and Nia silently approached the cabinet before opening its doors. Of course, Nia opened it from the outside and stayed out of its way in case anything happened, while Shizu pointed the muzzle of her spell gun at the interior of the cabinet. Not here. After that, the two of them looked to the bed. They checked that there was nothing underneath it, and then they approached the bed. Part of it was bulging up. Nia looked to Shizu before nodding to show she understood, and then she flipped up the blanket. There was a pretty-looking lump of lustrous purple meat there. No, it would be better to say it was a huge maggot. It was about 90 centimeters long, and it did not have hands, but stubby feet. Shizu pointed her gun's muzzle at it without any hesitation, and Nia hurriedly called out to her. "Wait, that's the target we were sent to rescue, the Prince of the Zirn." That was what the Zirn envoy had told Nia. However, she could understand Shizu's doubts, because Nia had been quite confused herself when the Zirn had given her the description of the Zirn prince. The Zirn were a species of demi-humans whose royalty looked very different from other individuals of their species. In addition to that, they ought to be sexually dimorphic too. Can you hear us, Zirn Prince Sama? Speak. It seems you are not my food. He sounded like a teenager. Nia was curious as to where his voice was coming from and examined him, whereupon she saw that his maggot mouth was opening and closing. "That's right. We've been asked to rescue you. Let's start by getting you out of here." He was still a prince, even if he looked like this, so she had to abide by the rules of etiquette. In addition, she would need his race's help when finding the Sorcerer King. Therefore, she ought to do him a favor now, instead of offending him. "Was it a request from my eggmates, comrades? Who asked you to do this?" "It was a Zirn called BBB. Do you know her?" "BBB, you say? Her, then? But if I leave this place, Jaldabath, Sama will be angry. This will place the Zirn people and particularly the king in danger. While I'm not too sure about the details, it seems the king has passed away, so we must rescue you at the very least. That is why the Zirn made this request of us." What? It was impossible for a human like Nia to read the expressions of the Zirn prince, who could not be anything but a gigantic maggot. However, she could clearly sense the profound sorrow in his voice. "Oh, father was actually... I see. That bastard Jaldabath. In that case, can you get us safely out of here? Your Highness' underlings will be guiding us out, so I think it should be fine." "I see. Oh, human heroes, who have come this far to aid me, I have a shameless request for you. Can you pretend that you carried me off by force while I was resisting you?" That request was probably just in case. "I understand. We shall pretend it is so. Thank you very much." The prince raised his head. While it looked just like a maggot raising its head, this was probably how his species expressed their gratitude. Nia wrapped the prince up in the sheets like a baby. If you had been a baby, he would have been scared to tears. She had experienced that twice now, and carried him on her back. She firmly tied the blanket around her chest so it would not loosen even when she was moving vigorously. The weight on her shoulder made Nia hurt. She wiped away the sweat beading on her forehead and used the necklace's magic. Her wounds healed instantly. Now she would be fine even if she had to run with the prince on her back. Are you feeling alright? If it hurts, please tell me right away. No, I am not uncomfortable. But you smell delicious. It makes me hungry. Hearing those words spoken from the vicinity of her neck made Nia shudder. What do the Zerns eat? Shizu asked a question which Nia did not want to ask. The bodily fluids of living creatures, be they alive or dead. A chill ran down Nia's spine. I'll get angry if you do anything weird to my junior. There is no need to worry. I am not hungry enough to do such a thing to the heroes who came to rescue me. While I have not been allowed to leave even once since the day they brought me here, they took care to feed me, at least. If she knew exactly what they fed him with, she would probably have dropped him like a ton of bricks, so Nia hurriedly stopped listening. Fortunately, Shizu did not ask further. Alright, let's go. Okay, please do. After that brief exchange, the three of them began to move. There was no time to waste on idle chatter during a clandestine infiltration. Fortunately, they managed to return to the larder without incident. This was when Shizu raised her hand to stop them. There are people inside. I'll leave them to you. Shizu readied her spell gun and forcefully opened the door. Then, she stopped. Shizu looked back. Not sure who they are? Zerns. Many of them. They ought to be the recovery team. Specifically, they were the Zerns who had brought Nia and Shizu here. They had probably arrived first because Nia and Shizu had been later than they had said. After entering the room, the 5 Zerns inside turned as one to them. The sight of these monsters with unreadable faces doing the same thing together generated a feeling inside Nia that was either fear or revulsion. Nia undid the sheets on her back, and revealed the Zern prince within. Oh, it's the prince. It was BBB. Nia would not have been able to tell them apart if they did not speak. However, if they were as different from each other as the prince was from them, she might not even have been able to tell if they were fellow Zern. Oh, eggmates of mine. I hear my father has passed on. I know that he, Jaldabaoth, does not intend to keep his word. But where will we flee after betraying Jaldabaoth? He has already conquered our lands and installed his trusted demons as their rulers. Are we not destroying ourselves by choosing to rebel? Your Highness is correct to be worried. But to him, the Zern are no different from livestock. Our hero Boobibi was a little late to arrive before him, yet it was judged enough reason to have the flesh torn from her shoulder. What? Boobibi, you say? The prince's shuddering told Nia that said Zern must have been of quite some status. Once everything is over, will the Zern find a place under Jaldabaoth's rule? We have determined that the answer is no. My prince, there is no time. Let us save these words for you fools. Can we leave that question until after we run? This is the turning point. Once we cross it, we must follow our course to its very end. Now is the only time we can turn back. Tell me, once we go back to our hive, once we go back to our hills, how do you intend to live on? That land is vast. Surely there will be a place where we can hide. You think so? Do you intend to have the species walk the road to destruction for this fleeting, wavering chance? Give me a more concrete, more practical solution. In that case, not everyone is in service to Jaldabaoth. We could form a resistance. You fool. That will only invite destruction from Jaldabaoth. An ant swarm draws more attention than a single ant. BBB fell silent as the prince shot down each and every proposal. It would be bad if this went on. Nia and the others had carried out this dangerous operation to this stage. If the prince now went, we can't do it after all, their efforts would have been wasted. It was then that Nia came up with something to soothe the prince's worries. In that case, why not have the Zern go to the Sorceress Kingdom? The Sorceress Kingdom? What is that? It was not just the Zerns, but also Shizu who looked to her. Yes, it is the country where Amon resides. He is the hero who once drove off Jaldabaoth in the kingdom. Nia sensed the Zerns were staring at her, but she did not know the implications of their looks. How could humans understand a Zern's expressions? Is what you say true? That single sentence was enough for Nia to understand why the Zerns had kept quiet. They doubted the truth of Nia's words. But that was only to be expected. The better one knew Jaldabaoth's power, the harder it was to believe that anyone could defeat him. I mean every word. I learned this through reliable channels. In fact, Shizu-san, she's right. Nia speaks the truth. Also, this was the crucial part. Nia psyched herself up internally. If you go to the Sorceress Kingdom like this, I am sure they will accept you as refugees. Refugees, you say? There was bitterness in the prince's voice. But if you can provide information about the Sorcerer King of the Sorceress Kingdom, I am sure that you will not be slighted even when you go there. Hold on. Why would they be happy to hear about their own king? Ah, yes. Right now, the Sorcerer King's location is unclear. Is that not very bad? In the worst-case scenario, he might even be dead. Is that not true? A moment, please. His Majesty cannot possibly be dead. There is concrete evidence, and we are verifying it now. Nia told them about how the Sorcerer King might have fallen to the hills where the demi-humans lived, so she wanted to count on their help to search for him. The prince fell silent. Is it not going to work? Nia thought, but since she had already made her pitch, she could say nothing more. The ball was now in their court. Also, even if they could not provide any direct assistance, they ought to be able to at least provide knowledge, as they had promised. I see. If we do them a favor. But will we be accepted as demi-humans? The Sorceress Kingdom is a nation of humans, is it not? No, it is not. The Sorceress Kingdom is a nation ruled by one of the undead. The undead. Both the prince and the Zern surrounding him exclaimed as one. Are you telling us to go to such a dangerous place? Every race harbored a strong hatred of the undead. Even Nia had been that way before she had come to understand the Sorcerer King. She was moved by the realization that the people before her were similar to how she had been not too long ago. A moment, please. The Sorceress Kingdom might be ruled by one of the undead, but its great ruler is an open-minded and noble king, and I have personally witnessed humans coexisting peacefully with demi-humans within the country. You're actually calling the undead great? I can't believe humans are so. That's enough. Nia Dono, I apologize if my subjects have given offense. However, is the Sorcerer King truly as great as you say he is? Yes. Nia held her chest high as she replied to the prince's question. We cannot read the expressions of human beings. But I understand that someone as brave as you, who has delved deep behind enemy lines in order to effect a daring rescue, must be making such a statement with the utmost confidence. Therefore, I shall believe in him as well, not the Sorcerer King who is one of the undead, but the Sorcerer King in whom you have placed your faith. Let us entrust ourselves to the Sorcerer King, then. Oh, the Zerns cried out in joy. It seems we have reached a decision. In that case, I pray you will flee to the Sorceress Kingdom with all due haste, my prince. Unfortunately, there's some very bad news, namely that one of Jaldabaoth's trusted demons will be coming soon. I thought it would be a few more days before he arrived. But it will be bad if we are found. Alright, let's go. As a species, the Zern were largely composed of females, with very few males. Pretty much only the king and the prince fell into the latter category. If a tribe's males were wiped out, although there were cases where females could change sex, the tribe would be set on the path to extinction. Therefore, the prince needed to flee to an absolutely safe place, the Sorceress Kingdom, which was why they had had the preceding discussion. Jaldabaoth's trusted demon? He's coming? There was a word the Zerns had said which she could not ignore. Have you not seen him? He has 3 trusted demons by his side, and one of them is coming here. We need to defeat him here. As he heard Shizu's words, the prince, who had been left on the ground, suddenly thrashed around. Are you insane? You two must be quite strong to have been able to rescue me, but even then, you'll never be able to defeat him. The label of strong only applied to Shizu, but Nia could not find a chance to cut in, and thus she could not clear things up. They say he teleports between many cities. Him coming here is a rare opportunity. If you miss it, you won't get another chance. That is true, my prince. Calm down and think about it. If we can kill one of Jaldabath's aides, his chain of command will fall into chaos, and it will be harder for them to find us, who are not heading for the hills but for the Sorceress Kingdom. Then, is it possible to defeat him? Don't know, but this is the only chance. Then let's take it. I'll bet on the strength that let the two of you kill the Va'an. The prince said. He had been quite shocked when he saw the demi-human's corpse on the way back. Listen well, all of you. From now on, we will help the two of them defeat the wicked Jaldabath's minion. Yes, there are 2 humans, and 6 of us. Until recently, the 8 of us were mutual enemies, but now we are comrades in arms. Such is the stuff of which heroic sagas sing. Surprised, Nia rechecked the number of Zirn present, and after seeing that she had not been mistaken, she hurriedly spoke up. Wait, please wait. You don't need to get involved in this, my prince. After all, we came here to protect you. In addition, what could this prince do in combat? However kindly one wanted to interpret his intentions, he was still a gigantic maggot that crawled on the ground. Honestly, it would be less troublesome if he simply followed them like a battle standard. I see, so to you, your mission is over since you have helped me escape. I see. However, with my help, it should be easier to defeat Jaldabath's henchmen. No, I should say that without me, it will be very hard for you to defeat him, even if you are the heroes who defeated the Va'an. Shizu had defeated the Va'an by herself. Nia had nothing to do with it. Even so, the prince still counted her as a hero, which made her very embarrassed. So, do you mean that we can do it if we get the help of all the Zerns? The prince made a strange noise. No, great heroes. It's not like that. I can cast spiritual spells of the 4th tier. The 4th tier. Nia was surprised. The 4th tier of magic was a realm that only geniuses could barely reach after much hard work. In the Holy Kingdom, the only people who could cast such spells were the High Priestess Kellert Custodio and the Holy Queen Calcabecerez. Nia glanced to the side, thinking Shizu would be as surprised as herself, but Shizu's face was as blank as ever. That was a difficulty rating 150 made demon for you. Such things did not even faze her. Ah, are all the Zirn as powerful as you? The prince made another strange sound, and thrashed like a caught fish. I am special. Precisely. That's why he is the prince. After hearing the Zirn's proud voice, Nia mused, I see, and recalled the contents of the classes she had once taken. That's right. The royalty of some species are so much more powerful than the commoners that they seem like a different species entirely. That said, I do have a weakness. Namely, I am very slow. Well, that's true, Nia thought. That much was obvious at a glance. If someone gets close to me, I'll be killed without the chance to fight back. Therefore, may I trouble you to carry me? I can cast spells when signaled. I see. I understand what you wish to do. However, could the Zirn, that is to say, your royal guards, not carry you instead of ourselves? Unlike our prince, we specialize in melee combat. The two of you fight from a distance, I believe. That is true. It would be better if Shizu-san or I carried him. No, let's leave that aside for now. It would be bad if we dragged the prince into this and he ended up dying. Nia, there's a special meaning to carrying the prince. That's why he suggested going with us. Phew. Indeed, there is. I say, do you know anything about him? That withered tree demon who decorates himself with heads? There are several demons like that. Silk hats, crowns, circlets, and Keralas. Shizu counted the 4 types off on her fingers. I believe that henchman demon must be one of them. But if we encounter a silk hat, we ought to flee. Even I could not win against one. So you knew. Nia was surprised, and then that feeling was replaced by anger. When they had prepared for the mission, Shizu had said that she did not know much about the henchmen demons. Had she lied to them? This was because if she was trying to keep information on Jaldabeth's army from the Holy Kingdom, it would mean that Shizu had never been under the Sorcerer King's control from the start. It also meant that Shizu's existence did not prove anything about the Sorcerer King's safety. I trusted you, and in the end you were lying to me from the start. Caught up in her emotions, Nia seized Shizu by the shoulders. She used a lot of force, but the maid demon did not seem hurt. It was not because Shizu had no emotions, but because that amount of strength was nothing to her. The unbearable regret and resentment made Nia want to cry. She had thought that she had forged a bond with Shizu, but in the end, she had turned out to be nothing more than a laughingstock. Nia could not help mocking herself. Shizu's face was as blank as ever. However, there was a subtle change there which only Nia could read. It was distress, contemplation, or perhaps remorse. I'm sorry. Shizu squeezed those words out after a long silence. It hardly qualified as an apology. In fact, it only served to stoke the flames of her anger. But right now, Shizu seemed strangely helpless, and seeing her like this helped Nia regain a bit of her composure. Carefully, like she was doing something she had never tried before, Shizu quietly continued. If you knew how strong the henchman demon was, you and the others might have been afraid and not carried out the operation. But for the sake of Ain-sama's victory, we must win this battle. That was why I lied. Every word she said had been carefully considered before being put together into a heartfelt, agonized statement. But those words also contained a genuine and immovable faith. Nia did not know how to see throughout her lies. Not to mention she was a demon. No, even if she were not a demon, Nia would not be able to tell if a blank-faced girl like her was speaking the truth. However, even if she were feeding information to Jaldabeth as a spy, or trying to bring down the Holy Kingdom from the inside, Shizu's actions until now did not match up to those motivations. She ought to have acted more sensibly. And more than anything else, Nia wanted to believe Shizu. Part of that was because her existence was a testament to the Sorcerer King's survival, but also because the mysterious connection she had to Shizu was irreplaceable to Nia. All right, I believe you. But please, don't look down on me anymore. I would gladly face any danger or fear for His Majesty's sake. Shizu looked visibly relieved. As expected, she could not have been a spy. As for why, that was because she was clearly not suited for it. As she thought that, a natural, unforced smile came back to Nia's face. All right, can we get back to the previous topic? If you know so much about them, can you tell us about that demon's abilities? These demons all possess the same abilities, but they are not very strong in their base forms. However, the problem arises when these demons are able to obtain the heads of intelligent creatures, particularly those of magic casters. According to Shizu, demons of that type could equip themselves with the heads of magic casters and use the powers of the heads' owners. Silk hats could use 4 heads at once, crowns could use 3, circlets could use 2, and corollas could use 1. Their threat level rose exponentially if they managed to obtain the heads of exceptional magic casters. No matter how good a head of the Corolla equips, it can only cast spells of up to the 3rd tier. Silk hats, on the other hand, can cast spells of up to the 10th. Wait, hold on. Both the prince and Nia interrupted Shizu. Nia and the prince exchanged looks. While Nia could not read the prince's face, Nia was certain that he was thinking the same thing as her. After you, Umu. Did you say 10th tier? Are 5th tier spells not the highest tier of magic? It was as the prince said. Nia had heard that this was the limit of magic. The reason why she felt that the Sorcerer King could use 6th tier spells also stemmed from that. In response to the prince's question, Shizu shook her head as if to say, what will I do with you? The 10th tier is the highest tier of magic. The spell that Jaldabaoth used to call down meteors from the sky also belongs to that tier. How can we beat no way. Don't tell me. His Majesty, who stood with Jaldabaoth. As the shocking truth hit Nia, the prince was also shuddering in shock. The 10th tier. No, it can't be, right? The 10th tier. Could it be true? And to think, I was so proud of myself in my 4th tier. No, the 4th tier was already very powerful. He would have been justified in being arrogant. There were precious few magic casters who could reach that level. Shizu, I'd like to check something, but can His Majesty use spells of the 10th tier, too? But of course. Why are you still saying this? Shizu's tone seemed to imply. She sounded like she was rolling her eyes. It might have been the first time that Nia had so clearly discerned Shizu's feelings. The prince, who was a fellow magic caster, was twitching from the tremendous shock. So the king of the land to which we are fleeing, the Sorcerer King, is such a powerful undead being? Does mastery of the 10th tier mean he is over twice as powerful as me? Shizu sighed deeply. His Majesty. Call him His Majesty. Yes. His Majesty is truly powerful. When one thought calmly about it, Shizu had actually been quite brusque with the prince of an entire tribe, but since Shizu was speaking about matters of fact, Nia tacitly acknowledged her actions as she expressed her agreement. Indeed, Prince Sama, His Majesty is incredibly powerful. Yes, Prince. If you could find someone that powerful, he would be in your debt. You're absolutely right. Then we shall give your earlier proposal, to search for His Majesty in the hills, our fullest support. Nia clenched her fists in excitement. Thank you very much, Prince Sama. Now then, Shizu, could you continue what you were saying just now? About how powerful Ain Sama is. We were talking about that henchman of Jaldabaoth. I'd like to hear about the Sorcerer King as well. Could you tell me more after we return safely? Multi-head demons with multiple equipped heads can use them all at once and cast multiple spells at a time, but there are several conditions. First, each head can only use 2 spells at once. In addition, there's a limit on how many tiers of spells which can be cast at once. For instance, Silk Hats can cast a maximum of 15 tiers of spells at once. Minus 15 tiers. Do spells go up to a maximum of 15 tiers? They don't go that high. The tiers of the spells added together can be up to 15. The prince writhed in relief at Shizu's answer. The fact that Nia could surmise a bit of how the prince felt through his actions began to frighten her. Moving on, the important thing is how many heads that demon can equip at once. 2. One is a demi-human head, and the other is the head of a human like yourselves. Nia had a bad feeling about this. Jaldabaoth had been holding a human body back then. Had its upper half not been missing? What was that human head like, Prince Sama? Unfortunately, I cannot tell apart individuals of species other than my own. I do know about the other head. It belonged to the queen of the demi-human species called the Pandex. Her name was the Grandmother. Nia wanted to ask more about the Pandex and the Grandmother, but Nia had more pressing things she needed to learn. I'd like to ask about the human. What color was her hair? By hair do you mean the fur on the head? It was light black. So it doesn't belong to someone from the Holy Kingdom. Nia's heart was somewhat at ease. For a moment, she had wondered if the head belonged to the Holy Queen. Now that her guess had been proven wrong, she felt a sense of profound relief. At the same time, Nia noted that this might be a hint to another riddle. She had heard that humans from the southern regions generally had black hair. So that's it, Nia thought. Had Jaldabaoth come from there, she wondered. To the Holy Kingdom, the southern regions were not a land that was ruled by humans. Less than half the population was human, and many of those had the blood of other species, and that number was steadily increasing. According to what Nia knew, only the Holy Kingdom, the Empire, and the Kingdom were ruled by human royalty. The City-State Alliance and the Theocracy did not have royal families. So that was why no news about Jaldabaoth had reached these human-dominated countries. Incidentally, multi-head demons cannot use the abilities of heads which do not belong to magic casters. They do not gain the abilities of warriors by equipping a warrior's head. That is because there are other demons with those abilities. In that case, the demi-human's head. Prince Sama, can you tell us a bit about that grandmother? All right, that is why I want to fight with you. The Pandeks are species that feed on moss, and they look like us. In other words, they looked like maggots. Nia felt a twinge of revulsion at the thought of a demon that adorned itself with the head of maggots. Was the grandmother also a spiritual magic caster? Indeed. I used the yin principle of the 5 elements, but the grandmother was the opposite. She used the yang principle of the 5 elements. Yin and yang are 2 extremes, and spells of one can resist or hamper spells of the other. I see. Shizu nodded. Letting him come with us would improve our chances. I am glad that you understand. Personally, I am very unhappy that a demon is using the head of the grandmother. Indeed, she was my first love, after all. My prince. What are you saying? How could you fall for a female of another species? Ah, that was a childish crush. It's different now. While it sounded like a saccharine sweet topic, all she felt about a maggot's first love was utter disgust. In that case, assuming our enemy is a circlet who can equip 2 heads at once, how many total spell tiers can it cast at one time? A maximum of 6 tiers. Incidentally, crowns can cast a maximum of 10 tiers. Then if I use 4th tier spells, it will only be able to cast spells of the 2nd tier. Of course that is simply nullifying that bastard, so you still have to be careful. Next is that human head. We know too little about it. Nia, I'm sorry. I regret to say I do not know the black-haired person. Still, I'm quite surprised. I thought that you would just jump right into the fight, since you're Shizu. Ain-sama said collecting information is very important. Ah, as expected of His Majesty. What an excellent notion. As Nia said this, Shizu reached a hand out to her, and Nia immediately grabbed it and shook. Good girl. If you were cuter, I'd put a sticker on you. Maybe a furry sticker. A sticker. You put one on me already, so I don't need another. Please paste it on someone else you like. You're the first person to dislike my stickers. Nia exclaimed in surprise as Shizu said that she was her first. After that, she immediately realized that perhaps she, as a demon, had not had many dealings with humans. No, it was possible that others might have despised her in their hearts but had not dared to voice it due to their fear of her as a demon. While she wanted to poke fun at her for it, Nia could not do anything like spoil the fun of someone who was loyal to the same supreme being as her. Thus, Nia simply let it pass with a bitter smile. Indeed, humans do not have fur, much like Weezerns. That is why they live in houses like these. Why not dig holes like we do? Prince, we're straying off topic. We don't have much time. We need to deal with this before the humans attack this city. In conclusion, the prince will be going too? Nobody spoke up against it. Or rather, Nia had been the only one to voice her opposition to it. Regarding our tactics, we will handle the front line, but what should we do if there are guards who block us? Allowing a spell-casting opponent to move freely is very dangerous. I'll engage it in close-quarters combat. Nobody asked if she could do it. She was half of the team which could defeat the Guardian Va'an, although that was all Shizu's work, or so everyone said. Nobody doubted Shizu's abilities. Alright, then let's move. Before approaching the henchmen, place us in the barrels and move us in. If you tell them you're bringing food to the henchman D-man on his orders, you'll be able to get close to him. Us, the prince was referring to himself, Nia, and Shizu. As long as the three of them remained undetected, they could continue maintaining their deception. The Zirin betrayal had not been detected. This was a tactic that could only be put into effect now. Once again, Shizu and Nia hid inside the barrels they had used to enter the city. Shizu-san, we're really lucky. Shizu poked her head out of the barrel. Why is that? Look, everything's going well for us. Thanks to the Zirin's betrayal, we managed to save the prince, and even Jaldabeth's henchman is here. If we defeat him, we'll have achieved a great accomplishment. That way, nobody will be able to speak ill of us anymore. We'll also be able to easily assemble a rescue party to find His Majesty. It was all coincidence. Nia was defeated by Shizu's somewhat harsh tone. Is that wrong? We're lucky because it was a coincidence. Well, we were this successful because His Majesty made you his property, so I guess in that sense, it's not really a coincidence. Ain-sama's property. Maybe property wasn't the right word, huh? I don't mind. Nia. I like you very much. You're not cute, but I don't mind giving you another sticker. It hurt a little to be called not cute over and over again, and as she thought this, Nia said, never mind, and ducked back into her barrel.